Hey everyone, tonight we're leaving our comfy beds and using scratchy blankets and an old straw mattress that smells a bit like mildew. You're pregnant in a medieval village. Congrats. But no one claps or cheers for you. Your reward is a sore back, no privacy, and a busy day that doesn't slow down just because you're pregnant. It feels like the rooster wakes you up just a few minutes after you finally fall asleep, and your whole body feels much older overnight. Before you get too comfortable, please like the video and subscribe if you really enjoy what I do. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing people from all over the world. Now, dim your lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's relax and start tonight's story together. You rise with the dawn, the world outside your cottage still wrapped in mist. Your feet are sore from a restless night, and your hands are swollen. Common complaint among pregnant women in the village, but one that brings a familiar worry. There is no physician here, no learned doctor with a bag of mysterious instruments. Instead, there is the village healer, a woman known for her knowledge of roots and leaves, for her quiet presence at the edge of every crisis. Her name is Milda, and she is as much a part of the landscape as the ancient oaks and the winding stream. Her cottage sits at the far edge of the village, half hidden by a tangle of elder and hawthorn. You make your way there, clutching your shawl against the morning chill, your heart heavy with hope and hesitation. Milda greets you at the door, her hands stained green from the morning's work. She is old, her back bent, her eyes sharp as a magpie's. She invites you in, and the scent of dried herbs and wood smoke fills your senses. Bundles of plants hang from the rafters: yarrow, mugwort, pennyroyal, rue, and dozens more whose names you barely know. On the table, a mortar and pestle, a chipped cup, a spoon carved from bone. You sit, and Milda examines you with a practiced eye. She asks about your pains, your appetite, your dreams. She listens as you describe the swelling in your hands, the heaviness in your limbs, the anxious flutter in your chest. She nods, her fingers moving over her collection of jars and bundles, selecting this leaf and that root, with the certainty of long habit. In the medieval village, herbs are both medicine and mystery. The knowledge of their uses is passed from woman to woman, guarded and cherished like a family secret. Some herbs are gentle, meant to soothe and comfort: chamomile for sleepless nights, lavender for headaches, mint for a troubled stomach. Others are more dangerous, their power respected and feared: pennyroyal, to bring on a late period; rue, to ease the pains of childbirth, but also to risk the life within. Milda prepares a tea for you, her hands steady as she measures and mixes. She warns you of the dangers: too much of this, and your child may be lost; too little, and your suffering will go unchecked. She tells you to drink only a small cup, and only once a day. You nod, grateful for her care, but also wary. You have heard stories of women who trusted too much in herbs, whose babies were born too soon, or not at all. The healer's knowledge is not written in books, but in memory and experience. She knows which plants grow in the shade of the old church, which roots are best dug after the first frost, which leaves must be gathered before sunrise. She knows the signs of a healthy pregnancy and the warning signals of disaster. She has seen women survive against all odds, and she has seen them lost despite every remedy. The village depends on Milda, but not without suspicion. Some whisper that her knowledge is unnatural, that she consorts with spirits or practices forbidden arts. The priest preaches caution, reminding the villagers that true healing comes from God, not from the hedge and the field. Yet when illness strikes, when pain becomes unbearable, it is Milda they seek. You sip the bitter tea, feeling its warmth spread through your body. Milda watches you, her gaze both kind and calculating. She asks you to return in 3 days, to tell her how you feel, to let her see the child's movement in your belly. She gives you a bundle of dried leaves to hang above your bed, a charm against nightmares and restless spirits. As you leave her cottage, the sun is higher, the mist beginning to lift. You pass other women on the path, some with infants in their arms, others with empty hands and haunted eyes. Each nods to you, acknowledging the shared burden of hope and fear that binds all mothers in the village. Back in your own cottage, you prepare the herbs, as Milda instructed, careful to follow her directions exactly. You remember the stories your mother told, of women saved by a timely dose of yarrow, of others lost to a careless handful of foxglove. You wonder how much of your fate lies in the plants themselves, and how much in the hands that gather and prepare them. The days pass, and you feel a little stronger. The swelling in your hands eases. Your sleep is less troubled. You thank Milda silently, even as you wonder what price you may yet pay for this relief. The line between healing and harm is thin, and you walk it with every cup of tea, every pinch of powder. In the evenings, as the fire burns low, you think of the healer and her herbs. You wonder how she learned so much, and what secrets she keeps. You wonder if her remedies are enough to keep you and your child safe, or if you are simply borrowing time from a fate that cannot be changed. And as you drift into sleep, you ask yourself, in a world without doctors or certainty, can the wisdom of herbs truly protect you? Or are you, like every woman before you, left to hope that the green gifts of the earth will be enough? 3 days have passed since your visit to Milda, the village healer. The swelling in your hands has eased, and your sleep is deeper, but with every improvement comes a fresh anxiety. In the medieval village, nothing is ever certain, least of all the effects of the healer's herbs. You prepare her tea each morning, careful to measure the leaves as she instructed. But you cannot help but wonder, is this truly medicine, or merely hope dressed in green? You return to Milda's cottage, as promised, your footsteps slow and cautious. The path is muddy from last night's rain, and the air carries the scent of wet earth and crushed grass. You clutch your shawl tightly, feeling the weight of the village's eyes. Some women nod as you pass, others look away. The healer's cottage, with its tangled garden and low smoke-stained roof, stands apart from the neat rows of Watalando homes. It is a place of both comfort and unease. Inside, Milda is busy sorting bundles of dried plants, her fingers nimble despite her age. She greets you with a nod and gestures for you to sit. She asks about your pains, your dreams, the movement of the child. You answer honestly, trusting her wisdom, but wary of her power. She listens intently, her eyes sharp and searching. Milda's knowledge is hard-won. She learned her craft from her mother and her mother before her, each generation adding to the store of remedies and warnings. She knows which herbs ease pain, which bring sleep, which can hasten a difficult birth. She also knows which are dangerous foxglove, deadly nightshade, hemlock. These she keeps well out of reach, for she has seen what happens when desperation overrides caution. The line between cure and curse is thin. Pennyroyal, for instance, is prized for its ability to bring on the courses when a woman's monthly bleeding is late. But it can also bring on miscarriage, a risk that is both sought and feared. Mugwort is used to ease labor pains, but too much can bring fever or delirium. Even the gentler herb zero, chamomile, lavender can be harmful if misused. Milda's skill lies not just in knowing the plants, but in reading the women who come to her, their bodies, their stories, their hopes and fears. The villagers' trust in Milda is always tinged with suspicion. When her remedies work, she is praised as a wise woman, a blessing to the community. When they fail, or when tragedy strikes, the whispers begin. Was the dose too strong? Was the herb tainted? Did Milda make a mistake, or was there something darker at work? The line between healer and witch is as thin as the line between cure and curse. The priest's sermons echo in your mind. He warns against placing too much faith in herbs and healers, reminding the village that true healing comes from God. Yet even he cannot deny Milda's skill. nor the comfort she brings to those in pain. You have seen him slip into her cottage at dusk, seeking relief for his own aching joints. Milda herself is careful. She never promises a cure, only relief. She insists on prayers before and after every treatment, invoking the saints as well as the spirits of the earth. She teaches you to make the sign of the cross over your tea, to whisper a blessing as you hang the herbs above your bed. Her practice is a delicate dance between faith and knowledge, tradition and necessity. You learn to recognize the signs of danger. If your skin flushes or your heart races after drinking a tea, you are to stop at once and send for Milda. If the baby stops moving, or if you bleed, you must call her immediately, no matter the hour. She warns you against seeking remedies from others, especially those who promise quick results or secret cures. The village has seen too many tragedies born of desperation, yet, for all the risks, the healer's herbs are often the only hope. There is no doctor, no apothecary, no hospital. The nearest town is a day's walk, and even there, the physicians are few and expensive. For most women, Milda's remedies are the only medicine they will ever know. You begin to see the healers work in a new light. It is not just about plants and potions, but about listening, comforting, and guiding. Milda is as much a counselor as a healer, her wisdom shaped by years of watching and waiting, of celebrating small victories and mourning inevitable losses. She knows that every birth is a gamble, every cure a risk, every life a fragile thread. One afternoon, you help Milda gather herbs in the woods. She shows you how to identify yarrow by its feathery leaves, how to dig for valerian root without damaging the plant, how to dry and store each harvest. She teaches you which plants are safe for pregnant women and which must be avoided at all costs. Her knowledge is practical, rooted in the realities of village life. As you work, Milda tells you stories of women saved by a timely dose of mugwort, of others lost despite every remedy. She does not shy away from the failures, nor does she boast of her successes. She knows that her power is limited, that nature is unpredictable, and that sometimes all she can offer is comfort. You return home with a new respect for the healer's craft, but also a deeper awareness of its dangers. You follow Milda's instructions carefully, grateful for her guidance, but mindful of the risks. You pray each night for the safety of your child, knowing that herbs and hope are sometimes all that stand between you and disaster. And as you lie awake, listening to the night sounds of the village, you wonder how many women have walked this path before you, trusting in the healer's wisdom, fearing her power, hoping for a safe delivery. In a world where every remedy is a risk, what does it mean to place your faith in the green gifts of the earth? The seasons shift, and with them, the herbs hanging from the rafters in Milda's cottage change color and scent. You are now in the final weeks of your pregnancy, and every day is a delicate balance of hope and anxiety. The swelling in your hands has returned, and your sleep is broken by dreams of birth and loss. You continue to visit Milda, grateful for her presence, yet always aware of the risks that come with every cup of tea and every whispered remedy. In these last days, the healer's role becomes even more vital and more perilous. The village expects Milda to perform miracles, to turn the tide of fate with a handful of leaves and a few muttered prayers. But you have learned, as she has, that nature is indifferent to hope. Sometimes, even the most carefully prepared remedies cannot prevent tragedy. One cold morning, you are woken by the urgent knocking of a neighbor. Another woman in the village, Anna, has gone into labor early. You hurry to Milda's cottage, where she is already preparing her satchel. Yarrow for bleeding, valerian for pain, mugwort to ease the birth. You follow her through the muddy lanes, the air thick with tension. Inside Anna's cottage, the scene is painfully familiar. Women gathered, the fire stoked high, the midwife and healer working side by side. The labor is long and difficult. Anna's cries echo through the small room, her face slick with sweat and fear. Milda moves quietly, her hands steady as she brews teas and applies poultices. She murmurs instructions to the midwife, offers sips of water, checks the child's position. But as the hours drag on, it becomes clear that something is wrong. The baby is slow to come, and Anna grows weaker with each contraction. Despite every effort, every herb, every prerana's strength fades. The women in the room begin to weep quietly, their faces etched with sorrow and resignation. Mil does not stop working, but you see the defeat in her eyes. When the baby finally comes, it is small and silent. Anna, exhausted and pale, slips into a fever that will not break. The village mourns. The priest leads prayers. The women prepare the bodies, and Milda returns to her cottage, her shoulders bowed under the weight of another failure. You visit her the next day, bringing bread and broth. She accepts your offering, but her hands tremble as she pours your tea. She speaks little, her voice thin and tired. You realize, perhaps for the first time, how heavy her burden truly is. Yet, life goes on. In time, another woman comes to Milda, seeking relief from swollen feet or a restless child. The cycle repeats: hope, remedy, risk, and sometimes loss. The healer's work is never done, and her knowledge is both a gift and a curse. She teaches you more about the plants, how to dry them, how to blend them, how to recognize when to use them, and when to let nature take its course. You sense that she is passing on her legacy, piece by piece, as if preparing you for a future where you, too, may be called upon to help. As your own time draws near, you prepare as best you can. You gather the herbs Milda has given you, hang them above your bed, and recite the prayers she taught you. You know now that these rituals are not guarantees, but gestures of hope, small acts of defiance against the uncertainty that surrounds every birth. When your labor finally begins, the women gather, the midwife and Milda at your side. The pain is fierce, but you draw strength from their presence and from the knowledge you have gained. You sip the teas, breathe in the scent of lavender and yarrow, and grip the healer's hand as the hours pass. When your child is finally born, healthy and wailing, the relief is overwhelming. The women weep with joy, and Milda's smiles a rare, fleeting smile that speaks of both triumph and exhaustion. In the days that follow, you reflect on all you have learned. The healer's herbs are not magic, nor are they mere superstition. They are the accumulated wisdom of generations. A fragile shield against the dangers of childbirth in a world without doctors or certainty. You understand now that the true strength lies not in the plants themselves, but in the courage of the women who gather, prepare, and administer them, who face the risks, endure the losses, and continue to hope. Milda's legacy, and the legacy of all village healers, is not measured in cures or failures, but in the quiet resilience of the mothers who survive, and the children who live to carry their stories forward. You know that one day, you will teach your own daughter how to find yarrow in the fields, how to brew a soothing tea, how to comfort a friend in pain. You will pass on the rituals, the knowledge, and the hope, because that is how your people endure. And as you lie awake in the quiet darkness, your child breathing softly beside you, you wonder, in a world so fraught with danger and uncertainty, is there any greater courage than the simple act of caring for one another, of gathering herbs and hope, and facing whatever comes with steady hands and an open heart? You wake to the sound of rain. It drums a steady rhythm on the thatched roof above your head, a sound you have known since childhood. Yet, as you shift on your straw mattress, you feel the familiar chill of dampness seeping through the woolen blanket. A drop of cold water lands on your cheek. You sigh and pull the blanket tighter, knowing there is no escape from the leaks that appear with every heavy storm. Your cottage is small, one room, shared by your husband, your 2 children, and now, as your belly swells, the promise of another. The walls are made of wattle and daub, patched with mud and straw, but the cracks let in the wind and the rain. The floor is packed earth, swept daily, but never truly clean. In the far corner, a pile of firewood and a few precious cooking pots. Above the hearth, a row of herbs and a string of onions, drying in the smoky air. There is no privacy here. Every sound, every movement is shared. At night, you listen to the breathing of your family, the soft whimper of your youngest, the snoring of your husband. You try to find comfort in the closeness, but as your body changes with pregnancy, the lack of space becomes a constant strain. Your back aches from sleeping on the hard ground. Your legs cramp in the cold. You wake often, needing to relieve yourself. But the privy is outside, and the rain is relentless. The leaks in the roof are a fact of life. Each winter, you and your husband climb onto the thatch, packing it with fresh straw, patching the holes as best you can. But the work is never finished. The rain finds its way in, pooling in the low spots, dripping onto your bedding, your clothes, your skin. Mold grows in the corners, and the air is always damp. You worry about the health of your children, about the cough that lingers in your chest, about the chill that settles in your bones. Pregnancy magnifies every discomfort. Your joints ache, your feet swell, your skin itches from the damp. There is no soft chair, no warm bath, no clean linens to ease your suffering. You do what you can, stuffing extra straw under your mattress, hanging blankets over the worst leaks, rubbing your legs with oil when you can spare it. But the relief is temporary, and the discomfort is constant. The chores do not stop. Each day you rise before dawn to tend the fire, fetch water from the well, sweep the floor, prepare what little food you have. You carry heavy buckets, knead dough, scrub clothes in cold water. Your body is tired, but there is no one to take your place. Your husband works in the fields from sunrise to sunset, and your children are too young to help with more than the simplest tasks. The cottage is both shelter and prison. In winter, you are grateful for its walls, for the fire that keeps the worst of the cold at bay. In summer, the heat and smoke are stifling, the air thick with the smells of cooking, sweat, and livestock. There is no escape, no place to rest, no moment of quiet. You long for fresh air, for sunlight, for a space of your own. Illness is a constant threat. The dampness breeds coughs and fevers. The crowded space spreads sickness quickly from one member of the family to another. When one child falls ill, you watch the others anxiously, knowing that there is little you can do to stop the spread. You remember the stories of past winters, when whole families were lost to fever. You pray that this year will be different. You do what you can to keep the cottage clean. You sweep and scrub, hang herbs to sweeten the air, open the door when the weather allows. But the mud finds its way in, tracked by boots and paws, and the smoke from the fire settles on every surface. Your hands are rough and cracked from washing and scrubbing, your nails always rimmed with dirt. Cleanliness is a battle you never win. At night, as you lie awake listening to the rain, you think of the women who came before you, your mother, your grandmother, all the mothers who raised children in these same cramped, leaky cottages. You wonder how they endured, how they found the strength to keep going. You wonder if they felt the same exhaustion, the same frustration, the same longing for comfort. And yet, you know you are not alone. Every woman in the village faces the same struggles. You share advice, trade remedies, offer a helping hand when you can. You laugh together at the absurdity of it all, at the way the roof always leaks in the same spot, at the way the children find joy in puddles and mud. You find comfort in community, in the knowledge that you are part of a long line of women who have survived and endured. Still, as the rain continues to fall and the leaks grow worse, you cannot help but wonder, how much longer can you endure these hardships? What happens when the discomfort becomes too much? When illness takes hold? When the burdens of pregnancy and poverty collide? The rain has eased, but the cottage remains damp. You move slowly through your morning chores, feeling the stiffness in your joints and the heaviness in your limbs. The air inside is thick, tinged with the scent of wet earth, wood smoke, and the faint sourness of old straw. Every task is harder now, bending to the hearth, lifting the water bucket, kneading dough with swollen fingers. Pregnancy makes your body feel foreign, clumsy, and vulnerable, a vessel for new life, but also a source of constant discomfort. You are not alone in this struggle. The other women in the village face the same daily grind. You see them at their faces drawn with fatigue, their hands red and chapped from cold water. You trade quiet words about aching backs, sleepless nights, and the best ways to keep a baby warm on a damp, windy night. There is little time for rest, and even less for complaint. The work must be done, and there is no one else to do it. The cottage, for all its flaws, is your world. It is where you eat, sleep, labor, and give birth. It is where your children take their first steps, and where you nurse them through coughs and fevers. The walls are thin, and every sound from outside argument, the barking of a dog feels close at hand. Privacy is a luxury you do not know. Even the act of giving birth is a communal affair, with women from the village crowding into the small space to offer help, advice, and prayers. Cleanliness is a constant battle. The mud from outside is tracked in by boots and bare feet, and the smoke from the hearth settles on every surface. You sweep the floor each day, but the earth is never truly clean. The children spill food, the dog shakes rainwater onto the bedding, and the straw mattress grows musty and thin. You hang herbs to sweeten the air: lavender, sage, rosemary, but their fragrance is quickly overtaken by the heavier sense of daily life. Illness is a frequent visitor. The dampness in the cottage breeds coughs and chills, and the crowded space means that sickness spreads quickly from one person to another. When your youngest child wakes with a fever, you watch anxiously, remembering the stories of past winters when illness swept through the village, leaving empty cradles and grieving mothers. You do what you can: herbal teas, warm compresses, prayers to the saints. But you know that your efforts are often no match for the realities of poverty and poor shelter. Food is another source of worry. The stores from last harvest are running low, and the bread you bake is stretched thinner with each passing week. You do your best to eat enough for the baby growing inside you, but there is never quite enough to go around. You trade with neighbors when you cane eggs for milk, a loaf of bread for a handful of dried beans. Every meal is a calculation, a careful balancing of need and scarcity. Despite the hardships, there are moments of comfort and even joy. On sunny days, you open the door and let the light and fresh air into the cottage. You watch your children play in the mud, their laughter bright against the gray sky. You share stories with the other women as you work, finding humor in the absurdities of daily life. You mend clothes by the fire, your hands moving with practiced skill, and feel a quiet satisfaction in the small victories: a patch well sewn, a loaf well baked, a child soothed to sleep. You find ways to adapt. You stuff extra straw into the mattress, hang blankets over the worst leaks, and use every scrap of cloth to keep the drafts at bay. You learn to ignore the discomfort, to focus on the tasks at hand, to find pride in endurance. You remind yourself that you are strong, that you have survived worse winters, harder pregnancies, deeper losses. Still, the strain takes its toll. Your body aches, your patience wears thin, and your mind drifts to worries about the future. What if the roof collapses in the next storm? What if illness takes another child? What if you cannot find the strength to see this pregnancy through? The questions linger, heavy as the damp air. The support of other women is your greatest comfort. You share burdens, trade remedies, and offer encouragement. When one of you falls ill, the others step in to help with chores and childcare. When a birth is difficult, the whole village rallies to provide food and support. In a world where every day is a struggle, community is your lifeline. As evening falls, you sit by the fire, your children curled beside you, your husband mending a broken tool, The rain has started again, tapping softly on the patched roof. You close your eyes and listen, grateful for the warmth of the fire, the closeness of your family, and the knowledge that, for now, you have endured another day. Yet, as the wind rattles the shutters and the dampness creeps in, you cannot help but wonder, how much longer can you rely on endurance alone? What will happen if the hardships of this life finally become too great to bear? The days stretch on, each one much like the last. Rain, wind, and the relentless chores of survival mark the passing of time. Your pregnancy progresses, and with it, the discomforts and anxieties multiply. Yet, within the confines of your cramped cottage, you discover a quiet resilience of strength, born not of comfort, but of necessity. You have learned to adapt in ways both large and small. When the roof leaks, you position pots and bowls to catch the drips, moving them as the rain finds new paths. When the wind howls through the cracks in the walls, you stuff rags and straw into the gaps, layering old cloaks and blankets to keep the cold at bay. You have become an expert at making do, at stretching every resource, at turning scarcity into sufficiency. Your body, too, adapts. The aches and pains of pregnancy become familiar companions. You learn to rest when you can, too. Prop your swollen feet on a bundle of firewood, to ask your eldest to help with the smallest chores. You accept the discomfort as part of life, as your mother and grandmother did before you. There is no room for self-pity, only for perseverance. The cottage, for all its flaws, becomes a place of shared memory. Each mark on the wall, each patch on the roof, tells a story of endurance. You remember the winter when the snow drifted so high you could not open the door. The spring when the roof nearly collapsed under the weight of the rain. The summer when sickness swept through and you nursed your family back to health. These memories are not only of hardship, but of survival, of overcoming. Again and again, community remains your greatest strength. When the burdens feel too heavy, the other women of the village come to your aid. They bring bread and broth when you are too tired to cook, help patch the roof when the leaks grow worse, watch your children when you need to rest. The bonds forged in hardship are strong, and you know that you are not alone in your struggles. There are moments of joy too, even in the midst of hardship. The laughter of your children as they chase each other across the muddy floor. The warmth of your husband's hand as he reassures you after a long day. The simple pleasure of a loaf of bread rising well in the hearth. You find beauty in the small things, a shaft of sunlight through the smoke, the scent of herbs drying above the fire, the softness of a child's hair against your cheek. As your time draws near, you prepare for the birth as best you can. You clean the cottage, gather clean rags, and ask the midwife to be ready. You know the risks: illness, infection, exhaustion, but you also know that you have survived so much already. You trust in your own strength, in the knowledge passed down through generations, in the support of your community. When the pains begin, the women gather. They bring hot water, clean cloths, and words of encouragement. The cottage, usually so crowded and chaotic, becomes a place of focus and care. The birth is hard, as they always are, but you are surrounded by hands that know what to do, by voices that soothe and guide. When your child is finally born, you feel a wave of relief and gratitude that washes away, for a moment, all the discomfort and fear in the days that follow. You rest as much as you can. The leaks in the roof remain, the wind still finds its way through the cracks, and the chores never truly end. But you hold your child close, feeling the warmth of new life, and you know that you have endured. You have adapted, survived, and brought forth another generation into this world of hardship and hope. As you sit by the fire, your family gathered around you, you reflect on what it means to live in such a place. The cottage is small, the roof is leaky, and the work is never done. But within these walls, you have found strength, resilience, and a sense of belonging. You are part of an unbroken chain of women who have endured, adapted, and survived. And as the rain begins once more, tapping its steady rhythm on the patched roof, you wonder, will the generations that come after you remember the quiet courage it took to live, love, and give birth in such humble, imperfect shelter? Will they see the beauty in endurance, the heroism in the ordinary, the strength in simply carrying on? You wake before dawn, the air in your cottage thick with the scent of damp straw and wood smoke. The fire has burned low, and you pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders as you rise from your pallet. Your belly is heavy now, the child within, restless. You are not alone in your anxiety. Every woman in your village knows that pregnancy is a time of peril, and that the dangers are not only of the body, but of the spirit in your world. Every shadow holds a warning, every event a sign. The line between the natural and the supernatural is thin, and the fate of your unborn child seems to hang on the smallest of actions. Your mother, and her mother before her, taught you the rules. Some are whispered, some shouted, but all are obeyed. You must never step over a grave, or your child will be born with a limp. You must not look at a fire during a thunderstorm, or the baby will have a red birthmark. If you crave apples and cannot eat them, your child will be born with a mark shaped like the fruit. If you sew on Sundays, your child will be born with crooked fingers. These are not idle tales, but truths as real as the mud on your shoes. The women of the village guard you with 1,000 small rituals. They tie red threads around your wrists to ward off the evil eye. They hang sprigs of rowan above your door to keep away witches. You carry a small pouch of salt at your waist, a gift from the midwife to protect you from spirits that might slip in when you are most vulnerable. When you pass the church, you cross yourself, whispering a prayer to Saint Margaret, who knows the pain of childbirth. Every day brings new omens. If you see a hare in the field, you must turn away. Hares are witches in disguise, and their gaze can sour the milk in your breasts. If a black cat crosses your path, you must spit 3 times to avert misfortune. If a crow calls from the roof, you must throw a handful of ashes into the hearth, lest death visit your home. You are careful with your words. You never speak of the child directly, never boast of your hopes. To do so is to invite envy, and envy is dangerous. There are those in the village who might wish you harm, even if only by accident. A careless glance, a thoughtless word, and the child could be lost. You keep your hopes close, sharing them only with your closest kin. The midwife, Agnes, is both a comfort and a cause for concern. She knows the old ways, and she brings you charms and prayers. But she is also feared. Some say she can see the future in the shape of your belly, that she knows if the child will live or die. You do not ask her, for fear of what she might say. Instead, you follow her instructions, drinking the bitter teas she brews and reciting the prayers she teaches. At night, your dreams are filled with warnings. You dream of rivers that run backward, of trees that bleed when cut, of children born with animal faces. You wake sweating, your heart pounding. You tell no one. Dreams are powerful, and to speak of them is to give them life. The church is both a refuge and a source of anxiety. The priest preaches against superstition, but even he blesses the water you drink and the bread you eat. He urges you to trust in God, but you know that God's will is mysterious, and that it is wise to hedge your bets. You light candles for the saints, you kneel in prayer, but you also keep the old charms hidden in your apron. The other women are your guides and your judges. They watch you closely, noting every misstep. If you fall, they rush to help, but also to whisper about what it might mean. If you laugh too loudly, they warn you to be careful. Joy attracts the envy of spirits. If you weep, they comfort you, but remind you that tears can weaken the soul. Your husband is kind, but he does not understand. He works in the fields, his world ruled by the sun and the soil. He worries for you, but he cannot share your fears. When you try to explain, he smiles and tells you not to worry. but worry is your constant companion, as much a part of you as the child you carry. Food is another source of anxiety. There are rules about what you can and cannot eat. Too much salt will make the baby slow. Too much honey will make the baby restless. You must eat bread blessed by the priest, but avoid mushrooms gathered after dark. If you crave something and do not eat it, the child will bear the mark. If you eat too much, the birth will be difficult. If you eat too little, the child will be weak. Every meal is a negotiation with fate. As your time draws near, the rituals intensify. The women gather more often, bringing gifts of bread and cheese, tokens of goodwill to ensure a safe delivery. They sweep your cottage with birch branches, driving out evil spirits. They sing old songs, their voices low and steady, weaving a protective spell around you. You are not allowed to be alone. Someone is always near, watching, waiting. If you must leave the cottage, you carry a sprig of rosemary and a piece of iron protection against wandering spirits. You avoid the crossroads, where the veil between worlds is thin. You avoid the woods at dusk, where witches are said to gather. The day of birth is a day of fear and hope. The women draw the shutters, darkening the room. They scatter salt on the threshold and hang a cross above the bed. The midwife arrives with her bag of tools and her bundle of herbs. She draws a circle on the floor with chalk, a barrier against evil. The women pray, their voices rising and falling like the wind as the pains begin. You grip the hand of your mother, your sister, your friend. They whisper encouragement, but also warnings. You must not curse, or the child will be born with a foul tongue. You must not cry out too loudly, or the spirits will hear. You must keep your mind clear, your heart steady. The birth is long and hard. The room is hot and close, the air thick with fear. The women chant prayers. The midwife murmurs instructions. You drift in and out of consciousness, the pain blurring the edges of the world. When the child finally comes, the room is silent, waiting for the first cry. When the baby cries, the women weep with relief. The midwife quickly checks for marks, for signs of trouble. The child is washed in water, blessed by the priest, swaddled in cloth that has been sprinkled with salt. A red thread is tied around the baby's wrist, a final protection against the evil eye. But even now, the danger is not past. The women watch you closely, watching for signs of fever, for bleeding, for the shadow of death that lingers in every corner. The rituals continue: prayers, charms, small offerings to the saints. You are not safe, not yet. In the days that follow, you remain in bed, the women tending to you and the child. Visitors come, bringing gifts and blessings, but also questions and warnings. Every action is scrutinized, every word weighed. You are grateful for their care, but also weary of their vigilance. As you lie in the half-light, your child sleeping beside you, you wonder if all these rituals truly protect you, or if they are simply a way to make sense of a world that is unpredictable and cruel. You long for certainty, for safety, but you know that such things are rare. Still, you follow the rules, perform the rituals, and hope that it will be enough. For in this village, in this time, superstition is not just a belief, is a way of life, a fragile shield against the darkness. But what happens when the rituals fail, when the signs are followed, and the omens heeded, yet tragedy still strikes? In a world ruled by fear and hope, how do women cope when the worst comes to pass? The days after childbirth are meant to be a time of rest and recovery. Yet, in the medieval village, rest is a luxury, and recovery is never assured. The women who surround you, vigilant and attentive, know that the real test has only just begun. For all the rituals, prayers, and charms, the shadow of loss lingers in every corner of your cottage. You lie in bed, the child at your side, and listen to the sounds of the village waking, the crow of a rooster, the distant clatter of a pail at the well, the muffled voices of children at play. Life in the village moves on, indifferent to your fears. The women who tend Your mother, your sister, the midwife watch for signs of danger, a fever, a chill, a sudden weakness. They know the symptoms, though they may not name them. Puerperal fever, that silent killer, is a specter they have seen before, though its cause remains a mystery. Each day brings new rituals. You are not to leave your bed for 40 days, not until the churching ceremony, when you will be welcomed back into the community. Until then, you are in a kind of limbo, neither fully part of the world, nor entirely apart from it. The women bring you food, light broth and bread, and keep the fire burning. They sweep the floor with birch branches, scatter salt in the corners, and hang fresh herbs above your bed. Visitors come, bringing gifts and blessings, but also questions. They ask about your dreams, your cravings, your pains. Every detail is examined for signs, for omens. If the baby cries too much, it is a bad sign. If the baby is too quiet, it is worse. The women offer advice, remedies, and warnings. You are grateful, but also overwhelmed. Their concern is both a comfort and a burden. Despite all precautions, tragedy is never far away. You hear the stories whispered at the hearth, of babies who sickened and died, of mothers who never rose from their beds, of families marked by sorrow. The village remembers these losses, each one a thread in the fabric of its history. The rituals are meant to protect, but everyone knows that sometimes they fail. When loss comes, it is swift and merciless. A baby who will not nurse, who grows weak and pale. A mother who burns with fever, her skin hot and dry. The women do what they can, herbs, prayers, cold cloths on the forehead. The priest is called, his prayers mingling with the sobs of the family. But often, there is nothing to be done. The community mourns together. The women gather to wash the body, to wrap it in linen, to prepare it for burial. There are rituals for this, 2 prayers to guide the soul, offerings to appease restless spirits. The grave is dug at dawn, the earth cold and unyielding. The village gathers, heads bowed, as the priest recites the final prayers. The loss is shared, but the pain is personal. In the aftermath, the women turn to their rituals for comfort. They light candles for the lost, hang new charms above the door, sweep the cottage with fresh branches. Life must go on, and the rituals help to make sense of the senseless. They offer a framework for grief, a way to channel sorrow into action. Yet beneath the surface, doubt lingers. If the rituals are meant to protect, why do they sometimes fail? Some whisper that the signs were missed, that a rule was broken, that envy or ill will brought misfortune. Others accept that fate is unpredictable, that suffering is part of life. The priest preaches that God's will is mysterious, that faith must be stronger than fear. But faith is hard to hold on to when loss is so common. You, too, struggle with doubt. You replay every moment, every action, searching for a cause. Did you forget a prayer? Did you eat the wrong food? Did you anger a spirit, or fail to heed a warning? The questions are endless, and the answers elusive. The women offer comfort, but also reminders next time. Be more careful, more vigilant, more faithful. In time, the pain dulls. New life returns to the village. New pregnancies, new hopes. The rituals continue, unchanged. Each birth is a test, each child a miracle. The women pass their knowledge to the next generation, teaching the old ways, the old fears. The cycle repeats, unbroken. Yet, in quiet moments, you wonder if there is another way. If knowledge, not ritual, could offer protection. If the world, beyond the village, holds answers to the mysteries that haunt your nights. You have heard stories of learned men in distant cities, of scholars who study the body and its ailments. But such knowledge is far away, and your world is ruled by tradition. Still, the question remains. If the rituals cannot guarantee safety, what is left to hold on to? Is it faith, hope, or simply the stubborn will to survive, no matter the odds? The days pass, and the rhythm of the village resumes its steady, unhurried pace. The fields must be tended, the animals fed, the bread baked, and the fires stoked. Life, with all its demands, does not pause for grief or for joy. Yet beneath the surface, every home is marked by the invisible scars of loss and the quiet persistence of hope. In your small cottage, you slowly regain your strength. The child at your side grows, first tentative, then with the sturdy determination that marks the survivors of this hard world. The women who watched over you begin to drift back to their own lives, though they never stray far. Their presence is a comfort, a reminder that you are not alone in your fears or your hopes. The rituals continue, woven into every aspect of daily life. Each morning, you sprinkle a pinch of salt on the threshold, a habit so ingrained you do not think to question it. When your child coughs, you reach for the pouch of dried herbs the midwife left behind. When you hear the distant cry of an owl, you murmur a prayer, just in case. These small acts are both shield and solace, a way to assert control over a world that so often feels indifferent to your suffering. As the weeks pass, the churching ceremony approaches. This ritual, meant to purify and welcome you back into the community, is both a relief and a reminder of your vulnerability. The priest blesses you with holy water, recites the ancient prayers, and you kneel, head bowed, grateful to be alive. The women gather in the churchyard afterward, exchanging quiet words and gentle laughter. For a moment, the burdens of fear and loss are eased by the warmth of shared experience. Yet, the questions linger. You have seen the rituals fail, seen good women and innocent children taken despite every precaution. You have witnessed the pain of mothers who did everything right, only to lose everything. And still, the rituals endure. They are passed from mother to daughter, neighbor to neighbor, as surely as the bread recipe or the method for mending a torn shift. Why do you continue? Perhaps because to abandon the rituals would be to admit how little control you truly have. The world is vast, unpredictable, and often cruel. The rituals are a map, a set of instructions for navigating the dangers that lurk in every shadow. They give shape to fear, transforming it into action, into community, into memory. The midwife, Agnes, is the keeper of these traditions. She knows the words to say, the herbs to gather, the signs to watch for. Her authority is rooted not in certainty, but in endurance. She has survived, and so the village listens. She teaches the younger women, not because she believes every ritual will work, but because she knows that belief itself is a kind of strength. In the evenings, as you sit by the fire with your family, you tell stories. Some are warnings of the woman who forgot to hang Rowan above her door, of the child who was born with a hair lip after the mother saw a hare in the fields. Others are tales of hope, of the baby who survived against all odds, of the mother who recovered from fever thanks to a timely prayer. These stories bind the village together, creating a shared history, a collective memory of endurance. You realize, in time, that the rituals are not just about protection, they are about connection. Each charm, each prayer, each whispered warning is a thread in the fabric of community. Through them, you remember those who came before, honor those who were lost, and offer hope to those yet to come. As your child grows, you begin to teach them the rituals. You show them how to tie a red thread around their wrist, how to scatter salt at the door, how to pray to Saint Margaret. You watch as they absorb these lessons, their eyes wide with the same mixture of fear and wonder that you once felt. You hope, silently, that their world will be safer, that knowledge and care will one day replace fear and superstition. But until that day comes, you pass on what you know, because it is what you have. The rituals may not always work. They may not prevent every tragedy or answer every question, but they give you something to hold on to, a way to make sense of the senseless, a means to endure. And in a world where so much is uncertain, that is no small thing as the fire burns low and the village settles into sleep. You find comfort in the quiet company of your memories, your rituals, and your community. The darkness outside is vast, but inside, there is warmth, and the hope that tomorrow will bring another day of survival. And as you drift towards sleep, you wonder, in centuries to come, what will remain of these rituals? Will the world remember the fears and hopes of women like you, or will they vanish, like smoke in the night, leaving only the faintest trace in the stories that are told? You are standing in the center of a small English village. Sometime in the mid-1300s, the air is thick with the scent of damp earth, smoke from peat fires, and the faint, ever-present aroma of livestock. The thatched roofs of the cottages huddle together as if for warmth. Their walls waddle and daub, patched and repatched over generations. The village is quiet, save for the distant clatter of a wooden bucket at the well and the occasional lowing of a cow. In this world, the cycle of life is as predictable as the turning of the seasons. Yet nothing is more fraught with uncertainty than the moment of birth. Imagine you are a woman in this village, perhaps in your early 20s, though you might look older. Life is hard, and it shows on every face. You are pregnant again. This will be your 4th child, if you are lucky, to have survived. 1. A tiny girl did not. There is no doctor here, no hospital, no trained nurse. There is only the midwife, and she is your neighbor, a woman who has learned by necessity, not by choice. The midwife, Agnes, is not a professional. She is a widow, her own children grown or gone. She learned the art of birthing from her mother, who learned it from hers. Her hands are rough, her eyes tired. She has a small bag with a few precious items, a knife, some linen rags, a wooden spoon for water, and a handful of dried herbs. She is called when the time comes, not before. There are no prenatal visits, no checkups, no assurances. The village itself is a world of women's work. Men are in the fields or tending animals, but the business of birth is left to the women. When your labor begins, it is the women who gather. They bring hot water, if there is fuel to spare. They bring cloths, if there are any left clean. The men are sent away, except perhaps the father, who waits outside, pacing and praying, or simply working. Because life does not pause for pain. You feel the first pains at dawn. The day is cold, and the fire in your cottage is low. You stoke it, wincing, and send your eldest to fetch Agnes. The hours pass slowly, marked by the tolling of the church bell, the only clock the village knows. The women arrive, quiet and purposeful. They speak in low voices, their faces set. This is not a time for joy, not yet. Too much can go wrong. Childbirth in the medieval village is a private, communal ordeal. The cottage is small, dark, and smoky. There is no bed, as you know. It's just a straw mattress, perhaps a wooden frame if you are lucky. The floor is packed earth, swept but never truly clean. The air is heavy with anticipation and fear. The women murmur prayers to Saint Margaret, patron, saint of childbirth, her image scratched into a wax tablet on the wall. There are no painkillers, no anesthesia. The only relief is distraction, a story, a song, a whispered prayer. The midwife checks your progress, her hands practiced, but not gentle. She watches for signs of trouble bleeding, a baby that will not turn, a labor that drags on too long. She has seen death before, and she knows the signs. Outside, life continues. The fields must be tended, the animals fed. The village cannot stop for one birth, not even yours. Yet inside, time stretches and contracts with each contraction. The women offer water, wipe your brow, hold your hand. They know what is at stake. Every birth is a gamble. The dangers are many. Infection is common, though the word does not exist yet. If the birth is difficult, there is little the midwife can do. She may use her knife to cut, if she must, but this is a last resort, and often fatal. If the baby is breech, the outcome is grim. If the mother bleeds too much, there is no saving her. The herbs Agnes brings Brinero mugwort, yarrow are, as much for comfort as for cure. You remember the stories told by other women, of babies born blue and silent, of mothers who never rose from their beds again, of the rare miraculous births where both survived. You try not to think of these now. You focus on the rhythm of your breath, the squeeze of a friend's hand, the sound of Agnes's voice, calm and steady. As the hours pass, the pain intensifies. There is no privacy, no dignity, only the raw reality of survival. The women encourage you, but their faces betray their worry. They have seen too much to be optimistic. You are not the first, nor will you be the last. In this village, birth and death are neighbors. At last, the moment comes. With a final, agonizing effort, you bring your child into the world. Agnes catches the baby, quickly wiping its face and checking for breath. The room is silent, waiting. Then, a cry, thin, uncertain, but alive. Relief floods the room, but it is tempered by caution. The danger is not over. The afterbirth must come, and with it, the risk of bleeding, of fever, of death. You are exhausted, barely aware, as the women clean you, wrap the baby, and offer you a sip of weak ale. The midwife murmurs a prayer of thanks, but her eyes are already scanning your face for signs of trouble. The other women begin to drift away, back to their own cottages, their own chores. Life resumes its relentless pace. Outside, the village is unchanged. The world does not notice your ordeal. The church bell tolls again, marking the passing of another hour, another life. You lie in your bed, the baby at your side, wondering what comes next. Will you survive the night? Will your child live to see another spring? These questions linger in the smoky air, unanswered, in the quiet that follows. You realize how little separates life from death in this place. The midwife, the women, the rituals, they are all that stand between you and the darkness. And yet, somehow, life goes on. But what of Agnes, the midwife herself? What burdens does she carry? And how did she come to bear this responsibility in a village that offers so little thanks? As you drift into a fitful sleep, you cannot help but wonder, what is it like to be the one who stands at the threshold, time and again, between birth and death? You wake in the half-light of dawn, the baby at your side, but our attention now turns to Agnes, the midwife. She is already up, moving quietly through the village, her steps measured, her face unreadable. For most, the ordeal of childbirth ends with the first cries of a newborn. But for Agnes, it is only one part of a long, unending cycle. Agnes has lived in this village all her life. She was not born to the role of midwife. It was thrust upon her, as so many burdens are, in a place where survival depends on necessity. Her mother was the midwife before her, and when she died suddenly, during a harsh winter, Agnes was the only one left who knew even a little of the craft. There was no formal training, no apprenticeship, only the knowledge passed down in hurried whispers, in the heat of crisis. In the quiet moments after tragedy, the villagers respect Agnes, but it is a wary respect. They need her, but they do not always trust her. Superstition clings to her like the mud on her boots. If a baby is born with a mark, or a mother dies in labor, there are whispers. Some say the midwife carries bad luck, that she knows too much of blood and death. Others claim she is a healer, a wise woman, perhaps even a witch. Agnes pays these rumors little mind. She is too busy, too tired, and too aware of how thin the line is between life and death. Her tools are simple. A sharp knife, kept as clean as possible, though true cleanliness is a luxury. Linen rags, boiled when there is enough fuel. Dried herbs for teas and poultices. Yarrow to staunch bleeding. Mugwort to ease pain. Pennyroyal for its bitter, uncertain magic. She has seen these remedies work, and she has seen them fail. There is no certainty in her work, only hope and habit. Agnes's day is filled with small, necessary tasks. She checks on the new mother and her child, watching for fever, for bleeding, for the signs of infection that come so easily in these cramped, smoky cottages. She listens to the women's stories, their complaints, their fears. She offers what comfort she can, but she knows her limits. There are no miracles here, only the slow grinding work of survival. The village itself is a patchwork of lives, each one precarious. Food is never certain, and hunger is a constant companion. Disease comes and goes with the season's coughs. In winter, fevers in summer. The ever-present threat of the great death that swept through only a few years ago, leaving graves unmarked and families broken. Agnes remembers that time well. She buried her own husband and 2 of her children in the space of a month. Grief is a private thing here, but it shapes every life. As midwife, Agnes is called to every birth, but also to every death. She prepares the bodies for burial, washing them with water from the well, wrapping them in the best cloth the family can spare. She knows the rituals, the prayers, the small gestures that bring comfort to the living. She is present at the beginning and the end, a witness to the full circle of life in the village. Her knowledge is practical, born of experience and necessity. She knows how to turn a baby in the womb, how to ease a mother's pain with herbs and gentle words, how to recognize when hope is lost. She knows when to call for the priest, when to send for help, and when to simply wait. Patience is her greatest tool, and resignation her constant companion. Agnes's work is not without risk. If a mother dies, there are questions. Did the midwife do something wrong? Was the birth cursed? In times of fear, suspicion turns quickly to accusation. Agnes has seen other women driven from their homes, accused of witchcraft or worse. She keeps her head down, avoids drawing attention, and relies on the quiet support of those who know her best. Despite the hardships, there are moments of joy. The safe birth of a child, the laughter of women gathered around a new mother, the relief on a father's face when both wife and child survive. These are small victories, but they matter. Agnes treasures them, even as she prepares for the next call, the next crisis. The village is a place of routine, but also of constant change. Children grow, seasons turn, and the old ways persist. Agnes teaches what she knows to the younger women, passing on the knowledge that was given to her. She knows that one day she will be gone, and someone else will have to take her place. The cycle will continue, as it always has. Yet, for all her experience, Agnes is haunted by the things she cannot control. The lingering fevers, the sudden deaths, the babies who never draw breath. She wonders, sometimes, if there is more she could do, if there are secrets lost to time. If the world beyond the village holds answers she will never know. One evening, as she sits by her fire, Agnes reflects on her life. She is tired, her hands stiff with age, her eyes dimmed by years of watching and waiting. She thinks of the women she has helped, the children she has delivered, the graves she has dug. She wonders what it all means, if her work has made any difference, if the village will remember her when she is gone. Outside, the village settles into sleep. The fields are quiet, the animals at rest. Agnes listens to the night sounds, the wind in the trees, the distant bark of a dog, the soft breathing of those she loves. She knows that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new lives, new losses. She is ready, as she must be, but as she drifts into sleep, one question lingers. In a world where survival is never certain, what does it mean to be the keeper of life and death? Is Agnes a healer, a burden bearer, or simply another woman doing what she must to endure? Night in the village is absolute. The only light comes from the faint glow of embers in the hearth, the moon's uncertain face peeking through gaps in the thatch, and the occasional flicker of a tallow candle. Outside, the world is a tapestry of shadows and muted sounds. The creak of a barn door, the distant hoot of an owl, the shifting of cattle in their pens. Inside, Agnes sits by her fire, her hands folded in her lap, her mind wandering through memories and worries like a traveler on a long, winding road. The new mother in her infant sleep, fitfully in the cottage across the lane. Agnes has checked on them twice since dusk, feeling the baby's warm cheek, listening for the rasp of fever in the mother's breath. So far, all is well, but Agnes knows how quickly that can change. The first days after birth are the most dangerous. A fever can rise with no warning. Bleeding can return, slow and hidden, until it is too late. A baby can stop breathing in the night, and there is nothing to be done but weep and pray. These are the realities Agnes has learned to accept. She has seen the best and the worst of what life here can offer. She remembers the faces of mothers she could not save, the tiny bodies wrapped in linen and buried at dawn. She remembers the gratitude of families, the relief in a father's eyes, the laughter of children who would not be here if not for her steady hands. Each memory is a thread in the tapestry of her life, a tapestry woven with endurance, sorrow, and the quiet hope that tomorrow will be better in the village. Time moves slowly, marked by the rhythm of the seasons and the tolling of the church bell. There are no great events here, no battles or kings, only the daily struggle to survive. Yet it is in these small, forgotten places that history truly lives. The work of women like Agnes unseen, uncelebrated, and often misunderstood shapes the fate of families and the future of generations. The rituals of birth and death are the pillars of village life. When a child is born, the women gather to wash and swaddle the infant, to offer prayers and blessings, to share in the fragile joy of new life. When someone dies, it is Agnes who prepares the body, who leads the prayers, who comforts the grieving. Her presence is a constant, a reminder that life and death are never far apart. Agnes has learned to find meaning in the ordinary. She takes pride in her work, though she rarely receives thanks. She finds solace in the company of other women, in the shared burdens and whispered confidences of the birthing room. She teaches the younger women what she knows, passing on the knowledge that has kept the village alive through famine, plague, and war. Sometimes, when the night is quiet and her mind is clear, Agnes allows herself to dream of a different life, a life where birth is safe, where mothers and babies do not die for lack of care, where her skills are valued and her burdens shared. She wonders if such a world is possible, or if suffering is simply the price of survival. The village will not remember Agnes with monuments or songs. Her name will not be recorded in any chronicle, yet her legacy endures in the lives she has touched, in the children who run laughing through the fields, in the mothers who survive to see another spring. Her work is the quiet engine of history, turning unseen beneath the surface of great events. As dawn approaches, Agnes rises from her chair, stretching her stiff limbs. She gathers her few belongings, the knife, the rags, the precious herbs, and steps out into the chill morning air. The village is waking, the first sounds of work and life drifting through the mist. Agnes walks to the cottage of the new mother, her heart steady, her mind clear. There is always more to do, more lives to tend, more stories to witness. In the end, Agnes is not a hero or a villain. She is simply a woman doing her best in a world that asks too much and gives too little. Her story is the story of countless others unseen, uncelebrated, but essential. It is the story of survival, of endurance, of the quiet strength it holds. A village together through the long, dark nights of history, and as you drift into sleep, listening to the gentle rhythms of a world long past, you might wonder, how many lives have been shaped by hands like Agnes's? How many stories have gone untold, hidden in the shadows of ordinary days? In the end, perhaps it is the quiet, boring work of survival that truly shapes the world. You wake before dawn, your stomach already aching with hunger. The air in the cottage is cold, and your breath hangs in the dim light as you pull your thin shawl tighter around your shoulders. The fire has burned low overnight, and the bread you baked 2 days ago is already stale. You break off a small piece for yourself, saving the rest for your children. Every crumb is precious now, for the hunger season has arrived. In the medieval village, the months between the last of the stored harvest and the first shoots of spring are the hardest of all. The larder is nearly empty, the last onions are sprouting, green in the dark, the beans are shriveled, and the salted meat is gone. You ration what little you have, stretching meals as far as possible. A thin broth made from bones and wild greens, a crust of bread, a cup of weak ale. This is your diet, day after day. Pregnancy makes the hunger sharper, more urgent. Your body craves nourishment, but there is little to give. You feel the weakness in your limbs, the dizziness when you rise too quickly, the gnawing emptiness that never quite fades. You worry for the child growing inside you, knowing that every missed meal is a risk, every day of hunger, a threat to both your lives. The other women in the village share your struggle. At the well, you trade quiet words about the state of your stores, the tricks for stretching flour, the wild plants that can be gathered from the hedgerows, nettles, sorrel, dandelion greens. These become staples, boiled into thin soups that barely take the edge off your hunger. You watch for the first signs of spring, for the wild garlic in the woods and the tender shoots in the fields. But the cold lingers, and the earth remains stubbornly bare. Your children are always hungry. They ask for more bread, for milk, for the sweet apples that grew in the orchard last summer. You give them what you can, hiding your own hunger behind a smile. You remember your own childhood, the long winters when your mother did the same. Her face gaunt and tired, her hands always busy with work. The men in the village fare little better. Their work in the fields is hard, and the meager meals leave them weak and irritable. Tempers flare more easily, and arguments over food are common. You do your best to keep peace in your cottage, to stretch what little you have, to keep hope alive. But the hunger grinds everyone down, making each day a test of endurance. Illness is a constant threat. The lack of food weakens your body, making you more susceptible to coughs and fevers. When a child falls ill, you worry that they will not recover, that the hunger has left them too weak to fight. You remember the stories of past years, when famine swept through the village, leaving empty cradles and silent hearths. You pray that this year will not be the same. The midwife and the healer do what they can, offering teas and broths, advice on wild plants and roots, but they cannot conjure food from barren earth. Their remedies are small comforts, unable to fill empty bellies or restore lost strength. You are grateful for their care, but you know that survival depends on endurance, on making it through to the first green shoots of spring. Despite the hardship, you find moments of solace. The women gather in the evenings, sharing stories and laughter, their voices a balm against the hunger. You sing to your children, rocking them to sleep with old lullabies. You find satisfaction in small victories, handful of eggs from the hens, a rabbit snared in the woods, a loaf of bread that rises well despite the poor flour. You learn to adapt, to make do with less. You grind acorns into meal, mix sawdust with flour, boil roots you once would have thrown away. You save every scrap, every bone, every rind. Waste is unthinkable, every morsel a treasure. You teach your children to do the same, passing on the lessons of survival learned from your mother and her mother before her. Yet, the hunger wears on you. Your body is thinner, your face more drawn, your patience shorter. You worry about the birth to come, about whether you will have the strength to endure, about whether your child will be born healthy or weak. You have seen too many babies lost to hunger, too many mothers fade away in the lean months. As you lie awake at night, the hunger gnawing at your insides, you wonder, how much longer can you endure? What will you do if the spring is late, if the stores run out, if the hunger becomes too much to bear? The days grow longer, but the hunger does not ease. Each morning, you wake with a hollow ache in your belly, a reminder that the food stores are nearly gone. Your body, already taxed by pregnancy, feels weaker with each passing day. You move slowly through your chores, careful not to waste energy, measuring every movement as you measure every crumb. You notice the changes in yourself. Your hair has grown dull. Your skin is dry and rough. Your gums bleed when you brush with a willow twig. Your legs cramp at night, and your heart pounds with the smallest effort. You know these are signs of hunger, of a body stretched beyond its limits. You have seen it before in others. The sunken eyes, the swollen ankles, the way a mother's milk dries up when there is nothing left to give. You do what you can to protect the child growing inside you. You eat the best of what you have, saving the freshest eggs, the last bit of cheese, the occasional bit of meat for yourself. It is a hard choice, one that weighs on your conscience, but the other women assure you it is necessary. A strong mother makes a strong baby, they say, though you all know that sometimes even the strongest are lost. The healer visits, her face grave as she examines your swollen feet and listens to your complaints of dizziness. She brings a tea made from nettles and dandelion, meant to strengthen the blood. She urges you to rest, but rest is a luxury you cannot afford. The chores must be done, the children fed, the fire kept burning. You thank her for her care, but you know that herbs cannot fill an empty stomach. You watch your children closely, noting every cough and fever. They are thinner now, their faces pinched and pale. You try to keep their spirits up, telling stories and singing songs, but you see the worry in their eyes. They know, as you do, that the hunger season is a time of risk, that not everyone will make it through. The village is quieter now. The laughter and songs of autumn have faded, replaced by the hush of endurance. The men work the fields, hoping for early greens, while the women gather what wild plants they can find. You join them, searching the hedgerows for nettles, sorrel, and wild garlic. Every handful is a victory, a small reprieve from the hunger. You learn new ways to stretch your food. You soak old beans for days, hoping to soften them enough to eat. You grind acorns into meal, mixing it with what little flour you have left. You boil bones for hours, extracting every bit of nourishment. Waste is unthinkably, race scrap is saved, every rind and peel boiled for soup. You barter with neighbors when you can, trading what little you have for something different. A few eggs for a cup of dried peas, a bit of wool for a handful of oats. The village works together, sharing what they can, but there is never quite enough to go around. Pregnancy makes everything harder. Your body aches, your mind is clouded with fatigue, and your emotions run high. Some days you feel hopeful, certain that spring will come soon and bring relief. Other days, you are overwhelmed by despair, convinced that you will not have the strength to give birth, that your child will be born weak or not at all. The midwife visits, her face lined with worry. She checks your belly, listens for the baby's movement, and offers what comfort she can. She has seen too many mothers lost to hunger, too many babies born too small to survive. She urges you to eat, to rest, to keep hope alive. You try, but hope is hard to hold on to when every day is a battle against hunger. Despite the hardship, you find moments of resilience. You share laughter with the other women as you gather wild greens, finding humor in your shared struggle. You take pride in small victories, a loaf of bread that rises well, a pot of soup that feeds your family for another day. You remind yourself that you have survived hunger before, that you are stronger than you think. At night, as you lie awake listening to the wind outside, you wonder how much more your body can endure. You pray for an early spring, for a good harvest, for the strength to see this pregnancy through. You think of the women who came before you, who survived hunger and loss and still found the courage to bring new life into the world. But the question remains, what happens if the hunger does not end? How do you find the strength to keep going when your body is failing, when hope is as thin as the broth in your bowl? The days blur together, marked by the same meager meals, the same gnawing ache in your belly, the same anxious glances at your dwindling stores. Yet, as the earth begins to soften and the first green shoots appear in the hedgerows, you feel a faint stirring of hope. The hunger season is not over, but you have survived its worst. You are thinner now, your face drawn and your hands trembling with fatigue. Your pregnancy has taken a toll. Your ankles are swollen, your skin stretched, tight over protruding bones. Still, the child within you moves, a reassuring flutter that reminds you why you endure. Every day, you whisper encouragement to the life inside you, willing it to hold on just a little longer. The village, too, shows the scars of hunger. Children's faces are pinched, elders move more slowly, and the laughter that once filled the lanes is softer, more tentative. Yet, there is a sense of shared relief as the first wild greens are gathered. As the hens begin to lay again, as the air grows warmer and the promise of spring becomes real, you find yourself smiling at the sight of nettles and dandelions, plants you once cursed. Now, precious sources of nourishment. The women gather together, comparing notes on what has survived the winter, sharing handfuls of sorrel and wild garlic, boiling up pots of soup that tastes of hope. You see the quiet pride in their faces, the satisfaction of having endured. You know that each of you has made sacrifices, giving up food for your children, trading precious belongings for a little extra flour, working through exhaustion and pain to keep your families alive. You think often of the choices you have made, saving the last egg for yourself, knowing it might mean the difference between life and death for your unborn child, giving your children the last crust of bread, even as your own hunger threatened to overwhelm you. These are not choices you wanted to make, but they are the reality of survival in a world where scarcity is the rule, not the exception. The midwife visits more often now, checking on your progress, watching for signs of weakness or illness. She brings you a little milk, a few fresh eggs, a smile that is both encouragement and warning. She tells you stories of other women who survived hunger, who gave birth to strong children despite the odds. You cling to these stories, letting them bolster your resolve. When the time for birth finally comes, you are afraid. Your body is tired, your strength nearly spent. But the women gather, as they always do, bringing hot water, clean cloths, and gentle hands. The birth is long and hard, but you draw on reserves of strength you did not know you possessed. When your child is finally born small, but alive, you weep with relief and gratitude. The women cheer softly, their joy tempered by the memory of those who did not survive. In the days that follow, you rest as much as you can. Your milk is slow to come, but with the help of the other women, you find ways to feed your child. The first greens of spring are a blessing, and you eat eagerly, feeling your strength return little by little. The hunger season has left its mark, but you have endured. As you watch your child sleep, you reflect on what it means to survive hunger. It is not just a matter of endurance, but of sacrifice, of putting others before yourself, of making hard choices, of finding hope in the smallest things. It is a quiet heroism, unnoticed by the world beyond your village, but essential to the survival of your family and your community. You know that hunger will come again, that the cycle of scarcity and plenty is as old as the village itself. But you also know that you are strong, that you are part of a line of women who have faced hunger and hardship, and still found the courage to bring new life into the world. You find comfort in this knowledge, in the bonds of community, in the resilience that has carried you through the darkest days. And as the sun rises higher and the earth grows green once more, you wonder, will the generations to come remember the quiet strength it took to endure the hunger season? Will they understand the sacrifices made, the lives saved, the hope sustained through the long, lean months? You lie in your small cottage, the infant swaddled beside you, your body still weak from the ordeal of childbirth. Outside, the village moves on, fields must be tended, animals fed, daily life resumed. But for you, The world feels paused, suspended, in a quiet space between birth and return. You are neither fully part of the community nor entirely apart. You are in a liminal state, marked by both joy and vulnerability. In this medieval village, the birth of a child is not only a physical event, but a spiritual one. After the birth, there is a period of seclusion, a time when you are considered ritually unclean, a state that carries both social and religious implications. This is the time of confinement, lasting traditionally 40 days, during which you are expected to rest and recover, shielded from the gaze of the wider community. The culmination of this period is the ritual known as the churching of women. This ceremony marks your formal return to the church and the community, a public acknowledgement that you have been purified and are ready to resume your place in village life. It is both a blessing and a rite of passage, steeped in centuries of tradition and belief. The churching ritual is held in the village church, a simple stone building with narrow windows and a wooden door worn smooth by generations of hands. On the appointed day, you are dressed in your best clothes, often a new gown or a carefully mended shift hand, accompanied by your family and neighbors. The journey to the church is slow and deliberate, a procession of support and solemnity. Inside, the priest waits, holding a candle and a small vessel of holy water. The church is quiet, the air heavy with the scent of beeswax and incense. The congregation gathers, their faces a mixture of curiosity and reverence. You kneel before the altar, your hands folded, your heart pounding with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The priest recites prayers of thanksgiving and blessing, sprinkling you with holy water to cleanse and protect. He may anoint your forehead with oil, a symbol of healing and sanctification. The congregation responds with hymns and murmured prayers, their voices weaving a tapestry of faith and community. The churching is not merely a religious formality. It is a social event that reaffirms your status as a mother and a member of the village. It signals that you have survived the dangers of childbirth, that you are once again ritually pure, and that you are ready to take up your duties as a wife, mother, and neighbor. Yet, the ritual also reflects the deep anxieties surrounding childbirth and purity in medieval society. The concept of ritual impurity is rooted in biblical teachings and church doctrine, which viewed childbirth as a source of spiritual contamination. This belief shaped the way women were treated during and after pregnancy, often isolating them at a time when they needed support most. During the confinement period, you are expected to avoid certain activities and places. You do not attend church services, you avoid contact with the sick or the dead, and you refrain from household tasks considered too strenuous. Your movements are limited, and your social interactions carefully controlled. The community watches, sometimes with sympathy, sometimes with suspicion. Your family and neighbors take on additional responsibilities during this time, bringing food, tending your other children, and helping with chores. The support is vital, but it also underscores your temporary removal from the daily rhythms of village life. You are both cared for and set apart. The churching ritual, then, is a moment of reintegration. It restores your place in the social and spiritual order, allowing you to step fully back into your role. It is a public acknowledgement of your survival and your purity, a reassurance to the community that the dangers of childbirth have passed. As you rise from your knees and receive the blessing, you feel a mixture of gratitude and relief. The ritual connects you to the generations of women who have come before, who have undergone the same trials and emerged renewed. It is a moment of continuity, of faith, and of hope, but questions remain. How do these beliefs about purity and impurity shape the experience of motherhood? What is lost and gained in the isolation of confinement? And how do women navigate the tensions between vulnerability and strength in a world that both fears and venerates childbirth? The days of confinement pass slowly, measured by the rhythm of the village and the needs of your newborn. You spend most of your time in the dim interior of your cottage, rising only to tend to the baby or to take a few careful steps outside when the weather allows. The world feels both close and far away. Voices and laughter drift in through the thin walls. But you remain apart, watching life continue without you. This period of seclusion is not unique to you. Every woman who gives birth in the village undergoes the same ritual isolation. It is said to be for your health, to allow your body time to recover, but it is also a matter of custom and belief. The lingering fear of impurity shapes every interaction. You are not to enter the church, not to touch sacred objects, not to attend to certain household duties. Some neighbors are careful not to cross your threshold, wary of the invisible boundary that separates you from the rest of the world. Yet, within this isolation, a different kind of community forms. The women of the village, mothers, sisters, neighbors, visit you in quiet moments, bringing food, advice, and companionship. They share stories of their own confinements, the fears, the aches, the moments of joy and despair. These visits are a lifeline, a reminder that you are not alone in your vulnerability. You listen, you laugh, you weep together. The bonds of womanhood strengthened by shared experience. Your body heals slowly. The aches and pains of childbirth linger, and some days you feel as fragile as a reed in the wind. The midwife checks on you, examining your wounds, offering herbs and encouragement. She reminds you to rest, to eat what you can, to let others carry the burdens for a while. You are grateful for her care, but also impatient to return to your old routines. The cottage feels smaller each day, the walls closing in as the days drag on. The baby is your constant companion, a source of both joy and anxiety. You watch for every sign of illness, every change in color or cry. You nurse the child as best you can, though your milk is slow to come and your own hunger makes it thin. The other women offer remedies, herbal teas, warm compresses, prayers to the saints. You try them all, hoping for strength. Outside, the village prepares for your return. The churching ceremony is anticipated by all, a rare moment of celebration in the cycle of work and survival. The priest visits to ensure you are ready, reciting prayers and offering blessings. He reminds you of the importance of purity, of the need to be cleansed before rejoining the community. His words are both comfort and reminder of your temporary exclusion. You reflect on the meaning of this ritual. Is it protection or punishment? A recognition of the dangers you have survived, or a mark of the fear that surrounds childbirth? The answers are not clear. You feel both honored and diminished, both cared for and set apart. The isolation is a burden, but also a shield, a space to recover and to grieve, to bond with your child and to remember those who did not survive. As the day of churching approaches, you prepare carefully. You wash yourself and your child, don your best clothes, and rehearse the prayers you will recite. The women help you dress, their hands gentle and reassuring. They remind you that this ritual is an ancient one, a thread that connects you to mothers stretching back through the centuries. You draw strength from their presence, from the knowledge that you are part of something larger than yourself. On the morning of the ceremony, you step out into the light, blinking at the brightness. After so many days indoors, the village gathers, faces turned toward you with curiosity and welcome. You walk slowly to the church, your child in your arms, the women at your side. The priest greets you at the door, his voice solemn as he begins the prayers. Inside you, kneel at the altar, the familiar scent of incense filling the air. The priest blesses you with holy water, recites the ancient words, and welcomes you back into the fold. The congregation murmurs their approval, and you feel a wave of relief and gratitude. The ritual is complete. You are restored, cleansed, and accepted once more. Yet, as you rise and return to your place among the women, you cannot help but wonder, what is the true cost of this ritual? Does it heal or harm, unite or divide? And how will you carry its lessons forward? as you return to the daily struggles of life in the village. The churching ceremony has ended, and you step out of the cool stone church into the sunlight, blinking at the brightness and the faces gathered to greet you. The ritual is complete. You have been blessed, welcomed, and declared pure. The invisible barrier that sets you apart has been lifted, and you are once again a full member of your community. Yet, as you walk back to your cottage, your child cradled in your arms, you feel the weight of all that has passed. The weeks of confinement, the uncertainty and fear, the ache of recovery, and the strange mixture of comfort and isolation linger in your mind. You are grateful for the support of the women who visited, for the care of the midwife, for the food, and whispered advice that sustained you. Still, you cannot help but reflect on the deeper meaning of what you have endured. The ritual of churching is meant to mark a new beginning. It is a public affirmation that you have survived one of life's greatest dangers and are ready to return to your duties. The community celebrates your endurance, your strength, and the new life you have brought forth. Yet beneath the surface, you sense the unease that surrounds the mysteries of childbirth, the fear of impurity, the anxiety about what cannot be controlled, the need to set boundaries between the sacred and the everyday. You notice, too, how the ritual shapes your relationships. Some neighbors greet you with warmth, eager to welcome you back. Others are more reserved, their glances lingering on you a moment too long, as if searching for signs of lingering impurity or weakness. The priest's words echo in your mind about the dangers of childbirth, the need for cleansing, the importance of faith. You wonder how much of this is truly about your health, and how much is about the community's need to manage its own fears. Back in your cottage, you resume your daily tasks. The rhythm of life reasserts itself, tending the fire, feeding your family, caring for your newborn. The days are busy, but you find moments of quiet to reflect. You think about the women who did not survive, whose absence is felt in every corner of the village. You remember the stories shared during your confinement, the whispered fears, the laughter, the small acts of kindness that sustained you. As the weeks pass, you regain your strength, your body heals, your milk flows more easily, and your confidence grows. You find joy in small things, your child's first smile, the warmth of the sun on your face, the comfort of familiar routines. The ritual of churching fades into memory, but its impact lingers. You are changed not just by the physical ordeal of childbirth, but by the experience of being set apart and then welcomed back. You wonder what the future holds for your child, for the other women of the village, for yourself. Will the rituals remain the same for generations to come? Will the fears and beliefs that shaped your experience endure, or will they fade as knowledge and understanding grow? You hope that your daughter, if she becomes a mother, will find more support, less isolation, and a gentler welcome back into the world. Yet, you also recognize the resilience that these customs have fostered, the bonds of womanhood, the strength found in shared experience, the quiet courage required to endure both hardship and celebration. The ritual of churching, with all its contradictions, is part of the fabric of your life, a thread that connects you to the women who came before and those who will follow as you settle by the fire. Your child asleep in your lap, you reflect on the journey you have taken. The path from confinement to community is not an easy one, but it is marked by endurance, adaptation, and hope. In the silence of the evening, you wonder what will be remembered of these rituals, these struggles, these small acts of survival, and how will the story of women like you be told in the centuries to come? You rise in the gray light before dawn, your body heavy with exhaustion and a sorrow you cannot name aloud. The cottage is quiet, the only sound the soft breathing of your family. You move carefully, each step a reminder of the emptiness within you. There is no baby to feed, no new life to cradle in your arms. The world outside continues as always. Cows must be milked, bread must be baked, Water must be drawn but for you. Time has slowed, thickened by grief. In the medieval village, loss is a constant companion. Every woman knows its shape, whether whispered about in the corners of the churchyard or carried silently behind tired eyes. Miscarriage and stillbirth are not rare tragedies, but everyday realities. Yet they are spoken of only in hushed tones, if at all. The language for this grief is limited. There are no rituals for comfort, no public acknowledgement of your pain. You remember the first signs, the sudden pain, the blood, the fear that settled in your chest. The midwife came, her face grave, her hands gentle but resigned. She offered herbs for the pain, whispered prayers, and sat with you through the worst of it. When it was over, she cleaned and comforted you, but there was little else to be done. The loss was accepted as part of life, a sorrow to be endured quietly. The other women knew, of course. They brought broth and bread, sat with you in silence. Their presence, a wordless comfort. Some shared their own stories, of children lost before they were born, of tiny bodies buried in unmarked graves, of the ache that never truly fades. You realized then how many carried this secret sickness, how many faces in the village bore the same shadow. The church offered little solace. The priest spoke of God's will, of suffering as a test, of the hope of heaven for innocent souls. But the rituals of mourning were reserved for those who had lived, for those whose lives could be measured in years, not days or weeks inside the womb. For you, there was only silence, a space where grief lingered, unspoken and unseen. You returned to your chores, your body weaker than before, your spirit dulled by loss. The village expected you to carry on, to resume your place among the living. There was no time for rest, no space for sorrow. You learned to hide your pain, to smile when spoken to nod and thank those who offered help. The world moved on, and you moved with it, each day a small act of endurance. Yet, in quiet moments, the grief returned. You remembered the hopes you had whispered to your unborn child, the dreams you had for their life. You wondered what you had done wrong, if you had worked too hard, eaten too little, angered a spirit, or broken a taboo. The other women assured you that it was not your fault. That loss came to everyone. But the questions lingered, heavy as the air before a storm. You noticed, too, how the village treated these losses. There were no names for the children who died before birth, no graves marked with stones or crosses. The midwife buried the tiny bodies in the churchyard's far corner or in the fields, away from the eyes of the community. The church did not record their passing, and the priest offered only brief prayers, if any. The memory of these children lived only in the hearts of their mothers. Despite the silence, you found small ways to remember. You kept a scrap of cloth, a lock of hair, a stone from the place where your child was buried. You whispered prayers at night, asking for protection for your lost one and for strength to carry on. You shared your sorrow with other women, finding solace in their understanding, their shared endurance. As the weeks passed, your body healed, but the ache remained. You wondered if you would ever feel whole again, if the shadow would ever lift. You watched the other mothers with their babies, feeling both joy for them and a sharp pang of envy. You wondered if you would have the courage to try again, to risk another loss, another heartbreak. In the quiet darkness, you ask yourself, how many women have carried this secret sickness, this silent grief? What would it mean if the world truly saw your loss, if your pain were named and honored, not hidden and endured alone? The days after your loss pass in a haze of routine and resignation. You move through your chores as if in a dream, your hands busy, but your mind elsewhere. The ache in your body fades more quickly than the ache in your heart. You are surrounded by life children's laughter, the clatter of the well, the lowing of cattle. Bet you feel set apart, marked by an absence no one dares to name aloud. The women of the village are your silent companions in grief. You see it in their eyes, the way they linger a moment longer when you pass, the gentle squeeze of a hand, the quiet presence at your side. Some bring food or offer to watch your children for an afternoon. Others share their own stories and whispers. Behind closed doors, or while working side by side, you realize how many have walked this path before you, how many carry the same invisible wound. Yet, for all the unspoken understanding, there is also a current of blame and suspicion that runs beneath the surface. The village is a place of many beliefs, and not all are kind. Some whisper that a miscarriage is a sign of God's displeasure, a punishment for a hidden sin or a broken taboo. Others speculate about curses, the evil eye, or the envy of a neighbor. You hear these whispers and wonder if they are meant for you, if your loss is being weighed and judged by those around you. You question yourself too. Did you work too hard in the fields? Did you lift something too heavy, eat the wrong food, fail to follow a ritual? Did you anger a spirit, or neglect a prayer? The midwife assures you that these things happen, that no one is to blame, but the doubts linger. In a world where so much is uncertain, it is easier to search for reasons, for patterns, than to accept the randomness of loss. The church offers little comfort. The priest visits, reciting prayers, and urging you to trust in God's plan. He reminds you that suffering is part of life, that your child is with the angels, that you must find strength in faith. His words are meant to soothe, but they do not fill the emptiness left behind. There is no ritual for your grief, no public mourning, no place in the churchyard for your child's name. You find yourself drawn to the other women, seeking solace in their company. Together, you share stories, not just of loss, but of endurance, from surviving hunger, illness, heartbreak, and disappointment. You laugh together, finding humor in the absurdities of daily life, and you weep together, allowing the tears to flow in the safety of shared sorrow. These moments of connection are a balm, a reminder that you are not alone. As time passes, you begin to heal. The pain does not disappear, but it becomes part of you, woven into the fabric of your life. You learn to carry it quietly, to honor your loss in small ways: a prayer at night, a flower left at the edge of the field, a whispered blessing for the children who never drew breath. You watch as other women go through the same ordeal, offering them the comfort and understanding you once received. You also notice how the village moves on. Life continues, marked by the same cycles of work and rest, birth and death, joy and sorrow. The memory of your loss fades from the minds of others, but it remains sharp for you. You wonder if this is how it has always been, if women have always borne their grief in silence, finding strength in each other when the world offers none. Yet, in the quiet moments, you still search for meaning. Was there a lesson in your loss? A message from God? A warning? A test of faith? Or was it simply the way of things, the price paid for living in a world where life is fragile and uncertain? The answers are elusive, but the questions remain. As you watch the sun set over the fields, you reflect on the resilience of women's, the quiet endurance, the willingness to support one another, the ability to carry on in the face of sorrow. You wonder, what would it mean if your grief were seen, if your loss were named and honored, if the world recognized the courage it takes to survive the secret sickness? The weeks turn into months, and the seasons change, but the memory of your loss remains vivid. You carry it quietly, a shadow that follows you through the rhythms of daily life. The village moves on around you, but your grief is a private companion, known only to those who have walked the same path. You find ways to honor your lost child in silence. A small stone placed at the edge of the garden, a whispered prayer at dusk, a song sung softly when the house is still. These acts are not recognized by the church or the community, but they are sacred to you. They are the threads that connect you to your child, to your own heart, and to the generations of women who have endured similar sorrow. The women of the village continue to be your support. They understand the unspoken pain, the secret sickness that marks so many lives. Together, You share stories, not just of loss, but of resilience and hope. You teach each other how to carry grief without breaking, how to find strength in the quiet moments, how to hold on to love even when it is unseen. The church remains a place of both comfort and distance. You attend services when you can, but you know that your loss is not marked by ritual or remembrance. The priest offers prayers for the living, for the community, but the silent grief of miscarriage and stillbirth remains outside the formal fold. You wonder about the future, about how the stories of women like you will be told, if at all. Will the generations to come understand the depth of your sorrow, the courage it took to endure, the quiet heroism of surviving loss in silence? Or will these stories fade, lost in the shadows of history, remembered only in the hearts of mothers? As you cradle your living children, you find a fragile peace. The secret sickness has marked you, but it has not defined you. You are part of a long line of women who have faced loss and found ways to carry on. Your strength is a testament to the resilience of motherhood, the enduring power of love, and the unspoken bonds that hold your community together. And as the village settles into the quiet of night, you whisper a final prayer, not just for your lost child, but for all the mothers who carry their grief in silence, and for the hope that one day their stories will be seen and honored. You stand at the threshold of the village hall, the weight of the community's eyes upon you. As the midwife, you carry a responsibility that is both revered and feared. Your hands bring life, but your knowledge also invites suspicion. In a world where every birth is a gamble, and every death a potential accusation, your role is fraught with peril. The villagers depend on you, yet they watch you closely. A whispered word here, a sideways glance there. The line between healer and witch is thin, and rumors can spread like wildfire. You have taken an oath not written, but understood to protect the mothers and children under your care, to do no harm, and to keep the secrets of the birthing room. But the law is not always kind to those who wield such power. In the village court, disputes over births, deaths, and accusations of malpractice are common. You have faced questioning, sometimes harsh, from local magistrates and church officials. The fear of witchcraft accusations looms large, especially when a birth goes wrong or a mother dies unexpectedly. You know that a single misstep could mean exile, imprisonment, or worse. Your knowledge is a double-edged sword. The herbs you use, the rituals you perform, the prayers you whisper each, can be seen as either healing or heresy. You must navigate the delicate balance between tradition and suspicion, between faith and fear. Despite the risks, you continue your work. You have seen the joy of new life, the relief of safe delivery, and the gratitude of families. But you have also witnessed the harsh judgment of the community, the whispered accusations, and the cold eyes of those who doubt your intentions. Your oath is not just to the mothers, but to the truth. You keep careful records in your mind, noting the details of each birth, the remedies used, the outcomes. You know that knowledge is power, and that it may one day protect you from the dangers that surround your work. Yet, the burden is heavy. You carry the weight of every life you touch, every secret you keep, every fear you face. The village may never fully trust you, but you know that without you, many would not survive. As you prepare for another birth, you wonder, how do you maintain your oath in a world that questions your every move? How do you protect yourself when suspicion is as dangerous as death? The sun rises over the village, casting long shadows across the fields and thatched roofs. For you, the midwife, the day brings another round of visits, a woman nearing her time, a new mother with a fever, a child slow to nurse. Each call is a reminder of your importance and of the scrutiny you live under. You move through the village with practiced calm, but you sense the watchful eyes. The older women nod in respect, but the younger ones, especially those who have never given birth, sometimes cross themselves as you pass. You know the stories that circulate, of midwives who could cause or cure with a touch, who knew the secrets, of herbs and the mysteries of life and death. These tales are both your armor and your greatest threat. When a birth goes well, you are praised in quiet voices, thanked with a loaf of bread or a handful of eggs. But when things go wrong, gratitude turns to suspicion. A baby born with a mark, a mother lost to fever, a child who never creased is a potential spark for rumor. You hear the whispers. Was it the midwife's herbs? Was there a curse? Did she anger the saints, or consort with darker forces? The law is a presence in your life, even if you rarely see the magistrate or the priest except at church or in times of crisis. You know that your work is only tolerated so long as it brings more good than harm. The church's teachings are clear. Healing is a gift from God, but meddling in the mysteries of birth can be dangerous. The line between piety and heresy is thin, and you must walk it carefully. There are rules you follow, both spoken and unspoken. You never work alone when you can help it always. Another woman present, a witness to your actions. You use prayers and blessings as often as you use herbs, making sure the community sees your faith. When you must use a risky remedy, you explain, at first, seeking the mother's consent and the approval of her family. You keep your voice calm, your hands steady, your eyes lowered in deference to the church and the law. Still, accusations come. Once, a woman died after a long labor, and her husband, maddened by grief, claimed you had hastened her end. You were called before the village elders, forced to explain every step you took, every word you spoke, every herb you administered. You recited your prayers, described your methods, and called on the women who had been present to testify. In the end, you were cleared, but the memory lingers. A warning of how quickly fortune can turn. You learn to protect yourself in small ways. You keep a careful record, if not on paper, then in memory of every birth, every remedy, every outcome. You maintain alliances with the priest and the more respected families. Knowing their support can mean the difference between safety and suspicion. You share your knowledge with the younger women, teaching them not just the skills of midwifery, but the art of survival in a world that is quick to blame. Despite the risks, you continue your work. The need is too great, the stakes too high. You see the gratitude in the eyes of mothers whose children live, the relief in the faces of families spared another loss. You know that your knowledge, your hands, your courage, are what stand between the village and the darkness that so often threatens. Yet you cannot ignore the fear that shadows your every step. You wonder, sometimes, how many midwives have been lost to suspicion, how many lives have been ruined by a single accusation. You wonder if your oath to heal, to protect, to serve can withstand the weight of so much doubt. And as you walk home at dusk, the village quiet around you, you ask yourself, is it possible to be both trusted and feared, both healer and suspect? What price must you pay to keep your oath in a world where every act of care is also an act of risk? Night falls slowly over the village, the sky deepening from gray to indigo as the last glow of sunlight fades behind the distant hills. The cottages, clustered together for warmth and safety, grow quiet one by one. Smoke rises in thin columns from the chimneys, curling into the cold air before vanishing. You, the midwife, sit alone by the fire. The day's work finished, but your mind still restless. The room is small, its walls lined with bundles of dried herbs and jars of ointments. The air is thick with the scents of lavender, yarrow, and wood smoke. Your hands, roughened by years of work, rest in your lap. You listen to the familiar creaks and sighs of the old cottage, the distant barking of a dog, the faint sound of laughter from a neighboring home. These are the sounds of a village at peace. But you know how quickly that peace can be shattered. You have lived in this village for most of your life. You know every path, every family, every secret. You have attended more births than you can count, held the hands of women in pain, caught babies as they entered the world, and whispered prayers over those who did not survive. You have seen joy and grief, hope and despair, often in the same day. sometimes in the same hour. Your knowledge is hard-won, passed down from your mother and grandmother, shaped by experience and necessity. You know which herbs to use for fever, which teas to brew for pain, which prayers to murmur when hope is thin. You have learned to read the signs in a laboring woman's face, to sense when a birth will be easy and when it will be hard. You have learned, too, the limits of your power, how quickly a healthy birth can turn to tragedy. How little stands between life and death, yet, for all your skill, you are never truly safe. The village depends on you, but it also fears you. You are respected, but you are also watched. Every success is quietly celebrated, every failure scrutinized. When a mother dies, or a child is born with a mark or a deformity, the questions begin. Was it the midwife's fault? Did she use the wrong herb, say the wrong prayer, anger the wrong spirit? Did she do all she could, or did she hold something back? You remember the first time you were accused? It was many years ago, when you were still young, still learning. The birth was long and difficult, the mother already weak from hunger and illness. You did everything you could, herbs for pain, prayers for strength, careful hands, and steady nerves. But the baby was born still, and the mother died before dawn. Her husband, wild with grief, accused you of witchcraft. He claimed you had cursed his wife, that your remedies were poison, that your prayers were blasphemy. You were summoned before the village elders, your heart pounding with fear. The priest questioned you about your methods, your knowledge, your faith. The other women were called to testify. Some defended you, others remained silent, afraid to draw the anger of the grieving man. In the end, you were spared, but the memory lingers. You learned that day how thin the line is between healer and suspect, between gratitude and accusation. Since then, you have been careful. You never work alone, if you can help it always. Another woman present, a witness to your actions. You keep your faith visible, crossing yourself before every birth, invoking the names of saints and angels, making sure the community sees your piety. You share your knowledge, but not all of it, holding back the remedies that might be misunderstood or feared. You keep a mental record of every birth, every remedy, every outcome, knowing that one day you may need to defend yourself again. The law is a distant but constant threat. You know the stories: midwives accused of witchcraft, dragged before the magistrate, imprisoned, or worse. Some were punished for failures that were never their fault, others for knowledge that threatened the authority of the church or the men who made the rules. You know that your remedies, your understanding of the body, your ability to comfort and heal, are both your defense and your danger. You have seen the power of rumor. A single whispered accusation can spread through the village like wildfire, fanned by fear and ignorance. You have learned to listen for the signs: sudden coldness in a neighbor's greeting, averted eyes at the well, the silence that falls when you enter a room. You know that your safety depends as much on your relationships as on your skill. You cultivate alliances with the priest, with the wealthier families, with the women who have seen you work and trust your hands. Despite the risks, you continue your work. The need is too great, the stakes too high. You see the gratitude in the eyes of mothers whose children live, the relief in the faces of families spared another loss. You know that your knowledge, your hands, your courage, are what stand between the village and the darkness that so often threatens. You take pride in your resilience, your ability to adapt, your quiet courage in the face of suspicion. But the burden is heavy. You carry the weight of every life you touch, every secret you keep, every fear you face. You wonder, sometimes, how many midwives have been lost to suspicion, how many lives have been ruined by a single accusation. You wonder if your oath to heal, to protect, to serve can withstand the weight of so much doubt. You find comfort in the company of other women. They know the truth of your work, the risks you take, the sacrifices you make. They defend you. When rumors spread, testify on your behalf. When questions are asked, bring you food and firewood when times are hard. You teach them what you can, not just the skills of midwifery, but the art of survival in a world that is quick to blame. You think, too, of the next generation. You have begun to train a young woman from the village, teaching her the secrets of herbs and the signs of labor, the prayers to say, and the remedies to use. You warn her of the dangers, the need for caution, the importance of humility. You hope that she will be wiser, safer, more accepted than you have been. You hope that the world will change, that knowledge will one day be met with respect, not fear. The gratitude of the families you help is real, but it is often fleeting. You accept their thanks, their gifts of bread or eggs, but you do not expect their loyalty when trouble comes. Instead, you place your trust in the women who have seen you work, who know the truth of what you do. It is their quiet support, their willingness to speak on your behalf, that has saved you more than once. You reflect, too, on the cost of this life, the constant vigilance, the need to defend yourself, the knowledge that one mistake or one tragedy beyond your control could end everything. You wonder how many healers have been lost to fear, how much wisdom has vanished because it was too dangerous to keep. Still, you do not regret your path. You know that your work matters, that you have saved lives, brought comfort, and helped your village endure. You find meaning in the small victories: a healthy child, a grateful mother, a family spared another loss. You take pride in your resilience, your ability to adapt, your quiet courage in the face of suspicion. As you prepare for bed, you whisper a prayer for protection, not just for yourself, but for all the women who carry the healer's burden. You hope that the world will change, that one day knowledge will be met with respect, not fear. But until then, you will keep your oath, you will teach the next generation, and you will endure. And as the fire dies low and the village settles into silence, you wonder, in a world so quick to judge, what legacy will you leave behind? Will the stories told about you be of suspicion, or of the lives you helped bring safely into the world? Will the next midwife find a gentler fate, or will she, too, walk the narrow path between trust and trial? As you drift into sleep, you remember the faces of the women you have helped, the children you have delivered, the families you have comforted. You know that your work is both a privilege and a peril, that your knowledge is both a gift and a threat. You hope that, in time, the village will remember you, not for the rumors, but for the courage it took to serve, to heal, to endure. You step out of your cottage into the thin morning light, a basket on your arm, and immediately feel the weight of watching eyes. The village is already awake, women at the well, men heading to the fields, children chasing chickens through the mud. Life here is lived in the open, every movement visible, every word carried on the wind. You know that nothing escapes notice, not the state of your dress, not the way you walk, not the swelling of your belly beneath your apron. In this place, reputation is as real and as fragile as the thatch on your roof. For a woman, it is both, shield and shackle, a thing to be guarded fiercely and lost in a moment. You have seen how quickly a single rumor can change a life, a careless word, a lingering glance. A child born to Sunich is enough to set tongues wagging, to turn neighbors into judges, to transform a home into a prison. The gossip begins as whispers at the well, in the shade of the churchyard, by the hearth on cold evenings. It is woven into the fabric of daily life, a constant undercurrent beneath the surface of work and worship. The women trade stories as they knead bread or spin wool, their voices low, but their eyes sharp. Who is quarreling? Who is ill? Who is expecting? Who is not? Every detail is noted, remembered, and passed along. You have learned to listen carefully, to read the tone and tilt of a voice, to recognize the difference between curiosity and malice. Sometimes gossip is harmless, a way to pass the time, to share news, to feel connected in a world that is often hard and lonely. But sometimes it is a weapon, wielded with precision and cruelty, used to punish those who stray too far from the expected path. For women, The threat of gossip is ever present, but never more so than in matters of love and childbirth. The rules are strict, the boundaries clear. A woman must be chaste before marriage, faithful after, modest always. To be seen alone with a man, to laugh too loudly, to show too much joy or sorrow, any of these can draw suspicion. And if a child is born out of wedlock, or too soon after a wedding, the consequences are severe. You remember the story of Anna, a girl not much older than yourself, whose laughter was bright and whose eyes were quick. She was seen walking with a young man from a neighboring village, and soon after, her belly began to swell. The whispers grew louder, the glances sharper. When her child was born, no father claimed it. Anna's family, shamed and angry, sent her away to live with distant kin. Her name became a warning, a lesson whispered to daughters. Guard your reputation, for it is all you have. The church reinforces these lessons. The priest preaches about virtue and sin, about the dangers of temptation and the importance of purity. He warns that women who stray bring shame not only on themselves, but on their families and the whole village. The rituals of confession and penance are public, designed to remind everyone of the price of transgression. Yet, for all the talk of virtue, you know that the rules are not applied equally. Men's indiscretions are often overlooked or excused, while women bear the full weight of blame and consequence. A man who fathers a child out of wedlock may be scolded, but he is rarely cast out. A woman in the same situation faces isolation, poverty, and lifelong shame. Her child, too, is marked, called bastard, denied inheritance, sometimes even refused baptism. You see how these judgments shape the lives of women around you. Some become withdrawn, careful to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Others rebel, quietly, finding ways to meet lovers in secret, to hide pregnancies, to seek help from the midwife or healer when trouble comes. The risks are enormous, but so is the desire for love, for connection, for a life beyond the narrow boundaries set by custom and fear. The midwife, too, is caught in the web of gossip. She knows the secrets of the village, who is pregnant, who has miscarried, who has sought her help to end an unwanted pregnancy. She keeps these confidences as best she can, but even she is not immune to suspicion. If a woman dies in childbirth, if a baby is born with a mark, if a secret is revealed, the midwife may find herself the subject of whispers. Her reputation as fragile as any other woman's. You, like all women here, must navigate this world of watching eyes and wagging tongues. You learn to move carefully, to speak cautiously, to keep your hopes and fears close. You rely on the support of trusted friends, on the quiet solidarity of other women who understand the stakes. You find small ways to assert your well-mended dress, a kind word to a neighbor, a refusal to pass along a cruel rumor. Yet you know that reputation is never fully in your control. It can be built over years and destroyed in a day. You wonder how many women have been lost to gossip. How many lives have been shaped by stories that were only half true. How much suffering has been caused by the simple act of speaking another's name. As you return home, basket heavy with the day's bread and vegetables, you hear laughter behind you. You do not turn, but you know it is about you. You walk on, head high, determined not to let the whispers touch you. But in the quiet of your cottage, you wonder, what would it mean to live in a world where a woman's worth was not measured by rumor, where every story was heard in full, where every life was judged with compassion and understanding? The days pass, and the whispers never quite fade. Gossip in the village is like the wind, sometimes a gentle breeze, sometimes a storm, always present. You notice how it shapes every interaction, how it lingers in the pauses between words, how it colors the way people look at one another. For women, especially, it is an invisible net, woven of suspicion, envy, and fear. You see the effects most sharply when a child is born out of wedlock. The signs are rarely missed. A belly that swells before a wedding, a baby born too soon, a father who never appears. The village is quick to note these things, to calculate dates, to draw conclusions. The mother's life changes overnight. Friends grow distant, neighbors look away. Even the children sense the shift, learning early that some questions are never to be asked, some answers never to be given. The church's role is both comfort and condemnation. The priest might offer forgiveness, but it is a forgiveness that comes with penance, with public confession, with the knowledge that the stain of illegitimacy is not easily washed away. Baptism for such a child may be delayed, or performed quietly, with fewer witnesses and less celebration. The child grows up marked not by any visible sign, but by the knowledge that their very existence is a breach of the village's moral order. You remember the story of Marjorie, whose child was born after a summer festival, the father never named. Marjorie's family stood by her, refusing to send her away, but the cost was high. They lost business at the market, invitations to feasts dwindled, and Marjorie herself became a figure of pity and warning. Her child, Thomas, grew up strong and clever, but the other children repeated what they heard at home. Bastard, they called him, and though Marjorie tried to shield him, the word stuck like a burr. For men, the consequences are rarely so lasting. A man who fathers a child out of wedlock may be fined, made to stand at the church door in penance, or even forced to marry the mother if her family is powerful enough. But often, he simply leaves fines work in another village, joins a band of laborers, or disappears into the army. The burden of shame, of raising a child alone, falls almost entirely on the woman. You see how some women try to fight back. They form quiet alliances, supporting one another with food, advice, and companionship. The midwife is often at the center of these networks, her knowledge of secrets both a shield and a risk. She knows which women are most vulnerable, which need extra help, which must be protected from the worst of the village's judgment. Sometimes, the midwife herself is drawn into the web of gossip. If she helps a woman conceal a pregnancy, or arranges for a child to be fostered with distant kin, she risks her own reputation. If she refuses to help, she is accused of cruelty. If a woman dies in childbirth, or if a child is born with a deformity, the midwife's name is whispered with suspicion. Her power is real, but so is her vulnerability. You watch how women navigate this world. Some become fiercely private, sharing nothing, trusting no one. Others become skilled at deflection, turning questions aside with a joke or a change of subject. Some embrace the role of outsider, refusing to apologize for their choices, but most simply endure carrying their burdens in silence, hoping that time will dull the sharpest edges of gossip. There are moments of kindness, too. You remember when Marjorie's child fell ill, and the women of the village brought broth and bread, sitting with her through the long nights. For a time, the gossip faded, replaced by the simple recognition of shared humanity. But as soon as the crisis passed, the old patterns returned. The village forgives, but it never forgets. You wonder about the children who grow up under this shadow. Some become defiant, determined to prove themselves. Others grow quiet, wary of drawing attention. A few leave the village as soon as they are able, seeking a place where their past is unknown. But most remain, finding ways to build lives in the only world they have ever known. You see, too, how the rules are enforced not just by the church or the elders, but by the women themselves. Mothers warn their daughters, friends caution one another. Older women remind the young of the dangers of recklessness. The fear of gossip is a powerful tool, shaping behavior as much as any law or sermon. Yet, beneath the surface, you sense a quiet rebellion. Women find ways to support one another, to create spaces of safety and understanding. They share stories, offer comfort, and sometimes simply listen. In a world where reputation is everything, these small acts of solidarity are acts of courage. As you return home at the end of the day, you feel the weight of these stories, the lives